chilly morning October, and I felt like the sun was reluctant to rise, just like my spirit. At 20 years old, I found myself standing in front of a mirror, staring at the reflection of a man I barely recognized. How did it come to this? I whispered to myself. Just 2 years ago, I was full of dreams. I had graduated high school with average grades, but a heart brimming with ambition. Growing up in a modest neighborhood, I'd seen my parents struggle to make ends meet. I promised myself that I'd build a better life, a life where I could provide not only for myself, but also for those I loved. But life had other plans. I had applied for countless jobs I believed were my ticket out of mediocrity. And yet, every time I reached the final stage of an interview, something seemed to go wrong. I was either overqualified, underqualified, or just not the right fit. One fateful day, I received a call from a company I had been dreaming of joining. The interviewer's voice on the other end sounded optimistic. "Congratulations, Ryan! You've been selected for the role." My heart leaped with joy. I ran to my parents, tears streaming down my face, and shared the good news. For the first time in months, I felt like I was finally moving forward. Just days later, an email arrived. The subject line read, "We regret to inform you." The company had retracted their offer, citing unforeseen internal changes. It felt like the ground beneath my feet had disappeared. The next few weeks were a blur. The rejection ate away at my confidence, and the constant failures became unbearable. One evening, as I sat alone in my tiny room, my thoughts took a dark turn. "What's the point of trying if nothing ever works out?" I muttered to myself. That night, I walked to the nearby bridge, the wind cutting through my jacket like shards of glass. I leaned over the railing, staring at the rushing water below. It was as if the river was whispering to me, inviting me to let go of my pain. As I stood there, tears streaming down my face, something caught my attention. A small group of fireflies danced in the darkness, their tiny lights flickering like stars against the night. I couldn't look away. Despite the cold, the darkness, and the harshness of their environment, these fireflies glowed. They don't wait for the perfect conditions to shine, I thought. In that moment, I felt a shift within me, a glimmer of hope, however faint. I stepped back from the railing, my heart pounding. If they can shine in the dark, maybe I can too. I returned home that night with a newfound determination. I realized that my mind had been my greatest enemy. For too long, I had allowed self-doubt and fear to dictate my actions. The first step, I decided, was to create a vision, something tangible that I could work toward. The next morning, I found an old whiteboard tucked away in a corner of my house. I wiped off the dust and placed it on my wall. With a marker in hand, I began to map out my dreams. 6 months, I wrote at the top in bold letters. 6 months to turn my life around. Underneath, I listed my goals. Find a stable job, build a routine, and regain my confidence. Each goal was accompanied by smaller, actionable steps. As I looked at the board, I felt a spark ignite within me. This wasn't just a list of dreams. It was a blueprint for my future. And for the first time in years, I know you're feeling lost and overwhelmed right now. You're questioning your worth, doubting your potential, and wondering if life will ever get better. But I want you to know that this moment doesn't define you. It's a chapter, not the whole story. In the coming months, you'll face challenges that will test your resilience. You'll experience rejection, doubt, and fear. But you'll also discover something incredible, the power of your own mind. When you start to believe in yourself and take intentional steps toward your goals, you'll realize that you are capable of far more than you ever imagined. The road ahead won't be easy, but it will be worth it. And one day, you'll look back on this moment and feel gratitude for the struggles that shaped you. So hold on, keep pushing, and never stop believing in your potential. With pride. Writing the letter was a cathartic experience. It reminded me of how far I had come and how important it was to honor the journey. On the final day of the 6th month, I invited a few close friends to my apartment for a small celebration. These were the people who had supported me during my darkest moments, and I wanted to share my success with them. As we gathered around the whiteboard, I told them about the journey I had embarked on and the lessons I had learned along the way. "This board started as a symbol of hope," I said, my voice tinged with emotion. "It was a way for me to visualize a better future when I couldn't see one. And now, it's a reminder that no matter how difficult life gets, we have the power to create change if we believe in ourselves and take action." My friends applauded, and one of them said, "Ryan, you should share your story with more people. It's inspiring." Their words planted a seed in my mind. Perhaps my journey wasn't just about personal growth. Maybe it was also about helping others realize their potential. In the weeks that followed, I began documenting my journey in greater detail. I started writing blog posts and recording videos, sharing the lessons I had learned and the strategies that had worked for me. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people who had faced similar struggles, thanking me for giving them hope and inspiration. One message, in particular, stood out. It was from a young woman named Emily, who wrote, "Your story made me realize that I've been holding myself back because I'm afraid of failure. Thank you for showing me that it's okay to start small and take one step at a time." Reading her words brought tears to my eyes. It was a reminder that our struggles, when shared, have the power to light the way for others. As I closed this chapter of my journey, I felt a sense of fulfillment I had never experienced before. The goals I had set for myself 6 months ago were no longer just dreams, they were my reality. But more importantly, I had discovered a sense of that went beyond personal success. I wanted to inspire others to believe in themselves and take control of their lives, just as I had done. The whiteboard in my apartment now had a new heading, "The Next Chapter." Underneath, I wrote, "Keep my story to inspire others. Develop a mentorship program for young adults. Pursue leadership opportunities at work. Write a book about my journey. Keep learning and growing every day." Looking at those goals, I felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. The journey was far from over, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next. After all, I had learned that life isn't about waiting for opportunities, it's about creating them. One of the rewarding moments came when a young man named Marcus approached me after one of our sessions. "Your story really inspired me," he said. "It made me realize that I've been holding myself back because I'm afraid of failing." Hearing those words reinforced my belief that our experiences, no matter how difficult, can serve as a source of inspiration for others. By the time I reached the 5th month of my 6-month vision, I felt like a completely different person. The man who had once stood on the edge of a bridge, ready to give up, was now leading projects, inspiring others, and building a future he could be proud of. But perhaps the most significant change was the way I saw myself. I no longer defined myself by my failures or shortcomings. As I updated my vision board one evening, I added a new section labeled Long-Term Dreams. Underneath, I wrote, "Dream big, believe in yourself, and never give up. Start my own business. Write a book about my journey. Create a mentorship program for young adults. Travel the world and share my story." Looking at those dreams, I felt a sense of excitement rather than intimidation. I knew that achieving them would take time, effort, and resilience, but I also knew that I had the tools and mindset to make them a reality. The 6th month of my journey arrived like the final chapter of a book I had poured my heart into writing. Every step I had taken, challenge I had faced, and every lesson I had learned brought me to this moment. Yet, as I stood at the edge of what felt like the culmination of my efforts, I realized something profound. This wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of a new chapter. By this time, I had fully embraced my role at work. The initial nerves and self-doubt that had haunted me were now replaced with a quiet confidence. I had become a key contributor to my team, often sought out for my insights and creative ideas. My manager had even hinted at a potential promotion in the near future, a recognition of the hard work I had put in over the months. But it wasn't just about professional achievements. My personal life had also undergone a remarkable transformation. The whiteboard in my small apartment, once a symbol of desperation, now stood as a testament to resilience and vision. Every goal I had written 6 months ago was either achieved or well on its way to fruition. I had learned that the act of writing down my dreams and breaking them into actionable steps was more powerful than I could have imagined. One of the most significant milestones during this final month was a presentation I gave at a company-wide meeting. The topic was innovation in digital marketing, and my manager had asked me to lead the session. Preparing for the presentation brought back memories of my early days, when I had struggled to find the courage to speak up in meetings. Now, as I stood before a room full of colleagues, I felt a sense of pride in how far I had come. Innovation isn't about reinventing the wheel, I began, my voice steady and confident. It's about looking at what already exists and finding ways to make it better, more impactful, and more meaningful. As I spoke, I could see nods of agreement and engagement from the audience. The presentation was a success, and the feedback I received afterward was overwhelmingly positive. My manager's words stayed with me. "Ryan, you have the ability to inspire others. Don't underestimate the power of your story." As the final days of the 6th month approached, I decided to take some time to reflect. I revisited the bridge where my journey had begun. Standing there, I felt a wave of emotions wash over me. The person who had once stood on that edge, consumed by despair and hopelessness, felt like a distant memory. In his place was someone who had discovered the strength to rewrite his narrative. I closed my eyes and let the memories of the past 6 months flood my mind. The early mornings, the rejections, the breakthroughs, the moments of doubt, and the victories. Each one was a thread in the tapestry of my transformation, and while the journey had been far from easy, it was those very struggles that had shaped me into the person I had become. One evening, as I sat in my apartment, I decided to write a letter to my younger self. Dear Ryan, self-discovery and transformation, the days following my decision to take control of my life were a whirlwind of emotions. I was excited but terrified, hopeful yet uncertain. I knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, I felt like I had a direction. My first task was to understand my own strengths and weaknesses. I sat down with a notebook and wrote 2 columns, one for what I believed I was good at, and another for what I struggled with. While I had always thought of myself as a failure, the list of my strengths surprised me. But the weaknesses, oh, those weaknesses, they stared back at me like a list of all my past mistakes: procrastination, fear of rejection, lack of focus. I took a deep breath and told myself, these are not permanent. These are challenges I can overcome. To hold myself accountable, I broke my 6-month vision into smaller weekly goals. The first week's focus was simple: wake up early, exercise, and apply to at least 5 jobs each day. That Monday, I woke up at 6 a.m. sharp. The alarm blared like a call to battle, and every fiber of my being begged me to stay in bed. But I forced myself up. I splashed cold water on my face and went for a jog around the block. The air was crisp, and as my feet hit the pavement, I felt a small sense of accomplishment. Back home, I opened my laptop and began my job search. I tailored my resume, wrote personalized cover letters, and sent out applications. Each click of the submit button felt like a tiny step forward. By the end of the day, I had applied to 6 positions. The first rejection came the next morning. "Thank you for your application," the email began, "but we have decided to move forward with other candidates." My heart sank, but I reminded myself, this is part of the process. Keep going. Over the next few weeks, I began to notice changes. Waking up early became easier, and jogging turned into a daily ritual I actually looked forward to. I started reading books on self-improvement and watching motivational videos. One quote, in particular, stuck with me. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. By the end of the first month, I had applied to over 50 jobs and received a handful of interview invitations. Though none had turned into an offer yet, I felt proud of the progress I was making. My confidence was growing, and I was learning to embrace rejection as a stepping stone rather than a roadblock. One evening, as I updated my whiteboard, I realized something profound. The vision I had created wasn't just about finding a job or achieving specific goals. It was about transforming myself, becoming someone who didn't give up, who faced challenges head-on, and who believed in their own potential. I am not the same person I was a month ago, I thought to myself with a smile. And for the first time in years, I felt truly. The third month of my journey began with a mixture of excitement and unease. By now, the routines I had worked so hard to establish felt like second nature. But with progress came new challenges, and I found myself confronting deeper fears and doubts I hadn't anticipated. One morning, as I jogged through the park, I found myself lost in thought. Am I really getting anywhere? I wondered. Despite all my efforts, I still hadn't landed a job. While I had made strides in my personal growth, the external results felt elusive. The weight of uncertainty began to press down on me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the urge to give up. That evening, I sat in front of my whiteboard, staring at the goals I had set for myself. The bold letters spelling 6 months to turn my life around seemed to mock me. But as the doubt crept in, I remembered why I had started this journey in the first place. To reignite my motivation, I decided to revisit my vision. I added a new section to the whiteboard labeled Lessons Learned, where I began listing everything I had gained so far. Discipline. Waking up early and sticking to a routine had taught me the power of consistency. Resilience. Every rejection had strengthened my ability to keep going. Self-awareness. Understanding my strengths and weaknesses had given me clarity. Looking at this list, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I realized that success wasn't just about reaching a destination. It was about the person I was becoming along the way. The following week, I decided to step out of my comfort zone. I had always been hesitant to network, fearing rejection and awkward conversations. But I knew that if I wanted to create new opportunities, I needed to put myself out there. I started by attending a local career fair. The idea of walking into a room full of strangers was daunting, but I reminded myself, this is part of the process. Growth happens outside of your comfort zone. As I entered the venue, the buzz of conversations and the sight of professionals in suits made me feel out of place. My hands trembled as I approached the first booth. "Hi, I'm Ryan," I said, forcing a smile. The recruiter's friendly response put me at ease, and as we talked, I felt my confidence grow. By the end of the event, I had collected several business cards and even scheduled an interview with a promising company. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I attended interviews, followed up with contacts I had made, and continued refining my skills. But amid the progress, setbacks still found their way into my journey. One particularly disheartening moment came after an interview I thought had gone exceptionally well. The hiring manager had seemed impressed, and I left the office feeling optimistic. But days later, I received another rejection email. This time, the disappointment hit me harder than before. What am I doing wrong? I wondered. Doubt swirled in my mind, threatening to undo all the progress I had made. Instead of letting the rejection define me, I decided to seek feedback. I emailed the hiring manager, thanking them for the opportunity and politely asking for insights on how I could improve. To my surprise, they responded with constructive advice. They highlighted areas where I had excelled and offered suggestions for improvement. Their words felt like a lifeline, reminding me that rejection wasn't a dead end, but a chance to learn and grow. As the third month came to a close, I experienced a breakthrough. One of the companies I had connected with at the career fair invited me for a second round of interviews. This time, I approached the opportunity with a different mindset. Instead of focusing solely on impressing them, I focused on being authentic and showing genuine interest in how I could contribute to their team. The interview felt more like a conversation than a test. I spoke openly about my journey, the lessons I had learned, and the goals I had set for myself. To my surprise, the interviewers shared their own story of overcoming challenges, and we bonded over our shared experiences. By the end of the meeting, I felt a sense of connection that went beyond qualifications. A week later, I received the call I had been waiting for. "Congratulations, Ryan! We'd like to offer you the position." I was stunned. After months of hard work, self-doubt, and perseverance, I had finally achieved one of my major goals. Tears welled up in my eyes as I thanked them and accepted the offer. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that the struggles I had faced were not obstacles but stepping stones. Each rejection, each moment of doubt had taught me something valuable. More importantly, they had shaped me into someone who didn't just dream of a better future, but actively worked to create it. As I updated my whiteboard one last time, I added a new phrase at the bottom: "The journey doesn't end here." I knew that this milestone was just the beginning. There were still countless goals to achieve, lessons to learn, and challenges to overcome. But for the first time in my life, I felt ready to face whatever came my way. First experience. The weeks after landing a job were nothing short of transformative. I walked into the office on my first day, feeling equal parts nervous and excited. The company was a mid-sized firm specializing in digital marketing, a field I had always been curious about, but never had the opportunity to explore. Those words ignited something in me. For years, I had felt like a passenger in my own life, waiting for opportunities to come my way. But now, I realized that if I wanted to truly excel, I had to be proactive. My first task was to familiarize myself with the company's ongoing projects. I spent hours reading reports, analyzing past campaigns, and learning about our clients. The more I learned, the more I felt a sense of belonging. But adapting to a professional environment wasn't without its challenges. During my first week, I made a few mistakes, misinterpreting instructions, missing deadlines, and fumbling during team meetings. Each misstep felt like a step backward, and I could feel the familiar sting of self-doubt creeping in. What if I'm not cut out for this? I thought one evening as I sat at my desk, staring at my notes. But instead of letting those doubts consume me, I reminded myself of the lessons I had learned during the past few months. I had overcome so much already. This was just another hurdle to cross. The turning point came during a brainstorming session for an upcoming campaign. As my colleagues shared their ideas, I hesitated to speak up, afraid that my suggestions might not be good enough. But then I remembered the words I had written on my whiteboard. Believe in your voice. Summoning my courage, I raised my hand and shared an idea for a social media strategy that targeted younger audiences through interactive content. To my surprise, my team responded enthusiastically. My manager even said, "That's a fresh perspective we hadn't considered." Hearing those words felt like a validation of all the hard work I had put into building my confidence. From that day forward, I made it a point to contribute during meetings. Even if I felt unsure, with each contribution, my confidence grew, and I began to feel like a valued member of the team. As I settled into my new role, I started to think about how I could apply the principles that had guided my personal transformation to my work. One evening, while reviewing my tasks, I decided to create a mini vision board for my career. On a piece of paper, I listed my professional goals for the next 6 months. Learn advanced skills in digital marketing. Take ownership of at least one major project. Strong relationships with my colleagues and clients. Recognition for my contributions to the team. I put the list to the wall next to my desk, just like I had done with my whiteboard at home. Every day, as I sat down to work, I glanced at those goals and reminded myself of what I was working toward. The major project I expected. My manager approached me one afternoon and said, "Ryan, we're launching a new campaign for one of our biggest clients, and I'd like you to take the lead on the social media strategy." My initial reaction was a mix of excitement and panic. This was the kind of opportunity I had been waiting for, but I couldn't ignore the voice in my head whispering, What if you fail? To silence that voice, I broke the project down into smaller tasks, just as I had done with my personal goals. I started by researching the client's brand and audience, identifying trends in their industry, and analyzing the performance of their previous campaigns. I then created a detailed plan outlining my strategy, complete with timelines, budgets, and key performance indicators. As the project progressed, I faced several challenges: technical glitches, last-minute changes from the client, and tight deadlines tested my patience and problem-solving skills. But instead of seeing these challenges as obstacles, I approached them as opportunities to learn and grow. With each problem I solved, I felt a growing sense of pride in my ability to adapt and persevere. When the campaign finally launched, the results exceeded everyone's expectations. Engagement rates skyrocketed, the client's social media following grew significantly, and the feedback from the client was overwhelmingly positive. During our next team meeting, my manager praised my efforts in front of the entire team. "Ryan's leadership on this project was instrumental in its success," she said. Hearing those words felt like the culmination of everything I had worked for. Outside of work, I continued to focus on personal growth. I started volunteering at a local community center, mentoring young adults who were struggling to find direction in their lives. Sharing my story with them was both humbling and empowering. As I listened to their struggles and aspirations, I was reminded of the challenges I had faced and the resilience it had taken to overcome them.